This is lesson 3. I'm going to talk about ceilings, floor-to-floor height, that sort of thing. We remember when you import into SketchUp, it destroys any annotation. So I hadn't noticed that you were given a 9'6" finished ceiling. So presumably an institutional. So the 14 feet that we use is more or less correct. Presumably there's significant systems, mechanical systems in those ceilings. Also, when you look at a drawing like this, there are clearly elevators and stairs imply what? That there's probably another story. So since there are no doors in this plan, the entry to the building must be elsewhere. The brief itself calls for, let me pull this thing up, and I think it's about 12,000 square feet. And you're given some kind of image to imagine that the building is located in such a place with such a climate. Looks like New Mexico or Arizona. 1,200, 540 foot space. So I don't know, if we look at this more carefully, we might discover that we're told which floor we're occupying or not. So somehow or other, somebody's got to indicate how you enter this building. So short of doors, you're going to assume that this is probably an upper level. It's got windows. In SketchUp, you're going to have to, create a floor slab Let's pause this a second. So in SketchUp, this is what we have in SketchUp so far. You'd want to create a floor slab and then openings in that slab for the, the systems that we're looking at over here. So let's go ahead and do that. It'll be easier if we hide visibility of the walls and columns, which are now occupying. So the floor, the outline of the floor, because we have this irregular shape inside. I'm going to draw from the outside of the perimeter. I'm going to cheat a bit, actually. I'm going to take the perimeter of the walls. Let's see. See if you follow what I'm doing here. I'm just taking, just so that I don't have to redraw this. I'm going to select the lines that form the exterior face of the walls that I modeled. And that was pretty stupid. I could have taken the interior face of walls and used that as a slab. but yeah, I can offset them. So copy that to the clipboard and then close this group. Edit, hide visibility there. Then you want to paste into place those lines. Now they're going to have an elevation of 14, which is okay. I'm going to select them and offset them 2 feet. And that should generate a face. And that face is going to be our floor. Let me cut that to the clipboard. Select this geometry. We don't really need it. It's a rather indirect way of doing it. And paste that face in place. So there's the outline of the floor. We want to extrude that to 12 inches. Let's say typical floor thickness. Triple click it, make it a group, and call it, make a layer for it, floor slab 1 or 2, whatever. We can contextualize it afterwards if we add a floor. Place it on that layer. Go into window component attributes to assign it a Z value. The attributes are really important when you're working in 3D. And aligning orthographically to different geometry. Okay. The way we modeled everything, we started on level 0, so I might, let's see, if we go to a front view, is this above the ground plane, which is level 0, we're saying coordinate 0. So I'm going to give it a Z attribute of -12. So now when I turn the rest of this stuff on, I have that floor. The floor needs openings for those systems. I could also replicate these systems and drag copies of them. So all I've done is selected the walls and the floor, holding down the control arrows, and drag copies of them 14 feet downwards or upwards. Let's do upwards. How will I know? Oh, the walls were modeled. Wait a minute. Okay, so there's a little dimple around the building because the floor slab is at 0 and the walls were modeled and extends below 0 and the walls were modeled at 0. So solid group, 2 solid groups, move copy, select an endpoint, tap the control key. Alright, I'm going to snap to that point. That's going to give us, that's going to replicate that (14 feet upwards. If I switch my style, we can see that what's solid and what's not. So we also need to replicate those core systems there. So let's create a layer, floor slab 2, walls 2, walls core 2. This is going to go on, it's currently walls, exterior walls 2. That slab is going to go to floor slab 2. We didn't copy the core yet, so let's do that by hiding the floor that occludes a view of that. Well, it's X-ray mode, so it's hardly occluded. We need to replicate the columns as well, naturally. So I'm just copying this. Tap the control key in the upward direction. You see that my control box is telling me 14 feet. Let's select all the columns and do the same. Don't know if we'll need a separate layer for those. I don't think you're going to be doing anything particular with columns. 14 feet I'm replicating in the vertical direction of columns. Floor slab 2. Did we copy the core? Yep. So these guys go to walls core 2. So now your floor to floor height, let's cut a section through here. There's a lot we still have not yet modeled. But you can see that we can now get from level 1 to level 2 via these stairs, and you want somehow to develop an entrance. So I guess your imagination is going to decide what or whether you include a second story and how you're going to handle the addition of an entry to the building. You'll need an exit 2 and 2 ways out, and the appropriate separation of exits as well. I assume you guys know all that. Alright. Save this as lesson. I did save it as lesson 3. Save.